The hockey world was taken by shock when they fired their head coach, who had been their head coach for 6 seasons, 6 winning seasons, 6 very winning seasons. They made the playoffs every year. Why did they fire him? Where is he going to end up? Who will they replace him with? Does one star player want out? And will the other one retire, go back, or come to the enemy, the arch rival Montreal Canadiens? We're going to talk about it on the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro. Jimmy Murphy from Boston Hockey Now is coming up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, and Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you.
I'm Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense like me, by nature, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And Lacage, where we're going to have our draft party, by the way, which I'll talk to you about in a second. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you. I'm going back on July 7th for the sickest draft party to ever make its way to Montreal. Thursday, July 7th. Stay tuned. It's going to be between, of course, the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro and Lacage. More details to follow. The Boston Bruins took the hockey world by shock. Then again, they didn't, because when it comes to Boston, you can expect the unexpected. But they fired head coach Bruce Cassidy after 6 very successful seasons. So where am I going? I'm going straight to Boston. He's been covering the Boston Bruins for a very, very long time. He even covers their arch rival Montreal Canadiens. Jimmy Murphy, welcome to the Sick Podcast. What's going on?
Not much, my man. Well, I shouldn't say not much. A lot of things are going on. Not much in my life, but a lot.
Well, hold on a second. World. If not much is going on, goodbye. See you later. Ciao.
Yeah, not much in my life, I should say. I'm stationary for once. It's been a crazy year, but yeah, with the Bruins, man, it is. I mean, you know what? I feel like I have the last 2 weeks, even maybe let's say 3 to 4, have been more busier than when the Bruins were playing for me and for anyone covering the Bruins, because it has been a roller coaster since the Bruins ended their season and got knocked out by the Carolina Hurricanes.
So let's talk about the firing of Bruce Cassidy, all right, who was an assistant with the Bruins in 2016, 2017. He then ended up taking over for Claude Julien when he was relieved of his duties. And in taking over in the final 27 games, he had a .685 winning percentage, lost in the round 1. The following season, a .683 winning percentage, lost in round 2. The year after that, .652, lost in the finals. The year after that, .714, lost in round 3. The year after that, .652, lost in round 2. And this past season, .652 winning percentage. And of course, they lost to the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs. I just take a look at the numbers, the winning percentages, those seasons, those 6 seasons. And I ask you, Jimmy Murphy, is this a joke?
Unfortunately, for the Bruins and their fans, it's not a joke. And it's kind of a repeat of things we've seen so many times in the past. And look, Tony, you and I are on the same age. We can go back to the days when the team president of the Boston Bruins, Cam Neely, was a player, and Harry Sinden was the GM. And, those teams that Cam Neely played on were always just sort of 1 or 2 players short, right, of always making it over the top and getting over that hump to win a Stanley Cup or just come close every year. And, what's scary to me, and a lot of people in Boston agree, is that Cam Neely has now become Harry Sinden. Cam Neely is now an extension of the Jacobs family, and he's going to make decisions based on their agenda and not necessarily on the team's best interest to make it to the Stanley Cup and win that trophy, which, look, they've only won one since 1972. The Bruins are lucky that they're in Boston, and this has been such a great sports city for the last 20 years. They've got caught up into that and become part of it. But when the truth be told, what have they really done in the last 20 years compared to
whoa. I hold on a second here. I don't think that's fair. Now, you're closer to the situation than I am, but on the surface, Jimmy Murphy, I know this. The Boston Bruins in the last 11 years have gone to 3 Stanley Cup finals.
I understand
they
that.
won 1 Stanley Cup. They lost the other final in 6, and they lost the other final in 7. I mean, look, they won a cup. It could have been none. It could have been 3. How many teams do you know have made it to 3 Stanley Cup finals in the last 11 years, not named the Tampa Bay Lightning?
None.
Well,
I agree.
And I mean, for you to say, what have they done?
Look, I respect, it's not about that. Look, I respect what they've done, and I think it's great what they've done there. But what I don't like is the way that when they don't get to that point where they're knocking on the door for the Stanley Cup final, or they're in the conference final, or they're there in the final, that all of a sudden they just look at the coach instead of the players, or instead of the GM that put that roster on the ice. And the coach did what he could with that. And going back to how we started this conversation, you ran off the record of Bruce Cassidy there. Look, man, I mean, let's look at the rosters he's had, and then let's look at some of the challenges that he's overcome. I mean, this season, halfway through this season, Bruce Cassidy and the Boston Bruins were not looking good. They were almost on the verge of being outside of the playoffs. And then Cassidy said, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to switch this up. And he deserves credit for that. And I don't think he's getting it right now.
All right. I think I understand your point that they probably don't trust the process.
Yes.
But I think you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay.
All right. Let me hear it.
It's going to make it for a good conversation.
Good.
Claude Julien was their coach for how long?
He was there for 11 years?
I think he was there for 9.5, if memory serves me well. I could be wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce Cassidy was there for 6.5. All right. So in the last 16 years, they've had 2 coaches. All right. There are teams that have gone through 4 coaches, 5 coaches, and 6 coaches in the last 16 years. Okay. They've gone through 2. I think they've trusted the process. They just have second guessed the coach a lot, but they made the coach continue, but they still second guessed them. And I think you answered my question before, because when a coach puts together seasons like Cassidy put together with those winning percentages, and you fire him, and it has a lot of people scratching their heads, at that point you ask the question, right? Did he have it out with one or more of his star players?
Mm-hmm.
Did he have it out with Don Sweeney? Did he have it out with Cam Neely? Or was it all of the above? Are you saying that it was just Cam Neely?
No, I'm going to say that it was A and it was C. It was some of the players.
Wow.
For sure. And then it was Cam Neely. What I think happened
Pardon me. That surprises me, by the way, because his star players produced under him. Did they not?
They did. But I think that look, as we're going to say, in the most recent season, he wasn't on the team, but he was there for a while under Cassidy. And that's David Krejci. And it's no secret that those guys did not meet eye to eye. And David Krejci forever wanted to play with David Pastrnak. And it didn't happen as much as he would have liked. And then he saw Cassidy switch the lines up and move Pasta down to line 2. And he looks at, oh, that's Eric Haller, but that could have been me. Why couldn't it have been me more? And David Krejci let it be known in some tweets and Instagram posts that, that would have been nice if maybe I could have played with Pasta more. So that definitely cemented a seed in doubt around Cassidy. I know that for a fact. And, Cam Neely, from what I'm told, never really met eye to eye with Bruce Cassidy. And it's very ironic, but not so ironic, that he never really met eye to eye with Claude Julien. And it seemed like that Neely has always been sort of doing things on, or trying to do things on his own. But then the GM that was in place couldn't allow him to do that because they were winning. And so anytime that Neely has a window to axe that coach that he doesn't agree with, we saw it in 2015 with Claude Julien, he does it. And this was all Cam Neely. This is a power trip, what happened here. And this was a power move by Cam Neely.
Why did the Boston Bruins get rid of Cam Neely?
Because he is very tight with the Jacobs. And he's also a legend in Boston. And it's almost like, look, I'm not going to say Guy Lafleur by any means.
And don't even put them together in the same sentence.
I'm not going to say that.
What is the deal? What are you? Don't put God's name in vain here.
The only man I would even put next to from the Bruins organization in terms of Guy Lafleur would be Bobby Orr. We know that.
Of course.
Okay. But I'm going to say in terms of popular players, you pick the guy, you pick the analogy on the Canadians. If that guy had become the team president, I think I know where you might go with this in the past. It's almost like his name as a player holds weight too much. And we've seen that twice now with Cam Neely, where maybe the Jacobs are depending too much on what he did in the past as to what he's doing in the present. And I think it's time that he faces the music. I think it's time he really answers questions about where the direction of this franchise is going. And I'm going to get a lot of hell in Boston. I already have for saying that. Yeah. And I'm sure number 8's not going to be happy with it either. But I think right now he is the issue with the Bruins because he's keeping them, and they're going to go into it right now, is that sort of mediocre purgatory, that just good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to make the playoffs stage that the Bruins were in for so many years under Harry Sinden, who just happened to be his mentor.
This is what they should do. Not that I want to give the Boston Bruins some advice, okay? I've seen this movie before. You know who I saw it with? I saw it with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I saw it with the Chicago Blackhawks. Okay?
Yes.
You have a time when you're good, you're real good, you're good for a long time. You win Stanley Cups, you go to the finals, this, that, whatever, and all that stuff, okay? At one point, you have to make the decision to rebuild because you just cannot stay on top for longer than that. You know, the Tampa Bay Lightning at one point, I know it's hard to believe right now, but at one point, they're going to have to start to rebuild. It's not now. It'll probably be a couple of years from now. Every team goes through it. It's a cycle, right? Where you're good, you're going to be good for X amount of time. And when that window is up, you kind of like have to start over again. If the Boston Bruins just play it out and just try to be good enough to get into the playoffs the way the Penguins were, what's going to happen is they're going to lose in the playoffs and they're not going to go far. They're going to lose and they won't go far. They're going to lose and they won't go far, or they won't make the playoffs. You trade your stars now, or you just kind of revamp it and make it younger. And that's what the Boston Bruins should do. If they're just going to try and squeak into the playoffs and just try and be good enough, teams that are just good enough, they don't end up winning the cup. You play to win the cup. You don't play for anything else.
I agree, Tony. And you know what? You guys have a guy right now that's in charge of the Montreal Canadiens named Jeff Gorton that just happened to be in the Boston Bruins organization at one point. What he did with the New York Rangers was a perfect example of what you're talking about right now. And I think that's where the Bruins need to go. Yeah. They need to stop living on the past. They need to look. I know for a fact that they listen to input from Krejci, who's not even on the team right now. They listen to input from people that were part of that team that we discussed in 2013 or going back to 2011. It needs to just move on. You had a great run. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, okay, it's time to refresh and let's go forward. And I think right now they're in that debate right now. Can we sell tickets? And obviously, you know, the problem is you had COVID and COVID affected every NHL team and it affected the economy. And I know no fan out there is feeling sorry for millionaires and billionaires, but that is playing a role in management and ownership decisions. And I think that has trickled down into what we see right now with the Boston Bruins.
Speaking of going on a great run, I do it at matrixhomefitness.ca. I do it in the comfort of my home because if I go outside, it's way too hot and I'm going to sweat too much. Bring it home. Discover a club quality workout in the comfort of your own home. Visit matrixhomefitness.ca. All right, so Bruce Cassidy, the Bruins fire him, and it looks like everyone wants to hire him. Everyone's interested. Where does he end up, in your opinion, and why?
You know what I think, Tony? The first instinct that came into my mind and just getting to know Bruce and what he said of this person is he reunites with a guy that he knew from his hometown of, I'm going to murder the pronunciation. I apologize. Nepean or Nepean, Ontario.
Nepean.
Nepean. All right. Thank you. Right
Yeah.
outside of Ontario. And that would be Stevie Y. Steve Yzerman, the general manager of Detroit Red Wings right now, is looking for a coach. And I think they would be a great mix. From what I'm told, they've kept in touch. They're always good friends. They pick each other's brains. I think that'd be a great mix. But I also, from what I'm told, know that he is in more conversations right now with the Vegas Golden Knights. And I think that would be an interesting pair right there. And then you look at what happened on Sunday, Tony, and it kind of raised a little Cassidy red light there, or a little bulb in my head, was what happened with the Florida Panthers on Sunday, where they fired their assistants, except for Ruutu.
Yeah.
There's been no word on what's going on with Andrew Brunette. From what I'm told by sources with the Panthers, they have not had conversations for a few weeks now. I would have thought when I saw that move that it was paving the way for Brunette to then be hired and name his staff. But now, on things I found out in the last few hours before I've talked with you, is that that's not so sure. I think the Panthers might have been in conversation with the Bruce Cassidy from everything I've discussed today with certain sources. And that would be an interesting combo as well. But look, the guy's got plenty of options open there. What I'm more interested to see is who the Bruins bring in as a new head coach.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to tell you this. If I'm Bruce Cassidy, I don't see him going to Florida, by the way. I think they're going to give Andrew Brunette a shot to bring in his own assistants, and they're going to go forward with him. I would go to the Vegas Golden Knights, where you have veterans, you have a window, you have players who are ready to win right away. He's never won a Stanley Cup. He wants to win one. I think you go there, you probably last 3 or 4 years, you win the cup, you win the cup. You don't win the cup, by that time, Steve Yzerman's built a contender in Detroit in about 4 years from now, and you could probably go there then. That's what I would do if I was him. But then again, I'm
with you too.
Yeah. All right. Now, this is a tweet that you sent out. Let's take a look at it for those who are watching, and you can watch us, of course, on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. It's absolutely free, and I think it's the best Montreal Canadiens podcast around. But, I'm a little biased that way. NHL source, NHL Bruins looking at coaches they hope can manage youth better. All right. And there's a picture of Jim Montgomery, who's one of the names that you bring up in your piece for Boston Hockey Now. And you can follow it on Twitter at BOS Hockey Now. And you can follow Jimmy Murphy, as you can see, at Murphy's Law 74. All right. Okay. So besides Jim Montgomery, who are the Bruins looking at as coach?
Well, one guy that's always been linked to Don Sweeney, I mean, we're even dating back to when Bruce Cassidy was named head coach, is Nate Lehman of Providence College. They have a great relationship. They've scouted together, just sat in the stands, watched a lot of hockey together. So that's a guy, and he's been on a lot of teams' radar for a while now. He won a national championship with Providence in 2015. And look, another guy that I've been sort of tipped off might be in the mix, and I sense that he would be better as an assistant. Again, even though he's already had an assistant job, I just don't know if he's ready for a head coaching job in the NHL, but he's killed it with the Windsor Spitfires. And that's former Boston Bruins player and center, Mark Savard. Cam Neely was very adamant about how much offense he wanted more into the Bruins lineup, into their game plan, into their system from their coach. Mark Savard would fit that bill, but I feel like he'd be more of a good power play specialist than a head coach at this point.
It's funny you say this. It's funny you say this because you say Mark Savard. I think Marty St. Louis. Skilled players, know how to run a power play. Very, very
fun.
good hockey minds. They weren't the biggest players in the world, so they had to use their hockey mind and their hockey brains to get by. Yeah. Unfortunately for Mark Savard, he got tagged a couple of times. Feel bad for him. His career was cut short prematurely because of concussions, very unfortunately. And, if you would have said Marty St. Louis for the Montreal Canadiens a year ago, most people would have told you they would have thought he probably would have been a better power play consultant than a head coach. They wouldn't think he had the experience.
That's a great
point.
Kent
Hughes and Jeff Gordon. I'm in the habit of, I'm not just another pretty face, I do make great points every now and then, but Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes deserve a lot of credit for taking a chance on Marty St. Louis, who I think proved that he's more than just a power play coach. He could be a head coach in the National Hockey League. So anyway, all's to say, you think Mark Savard, I think Marty St. Louis, and Mark Savard may end up being a very good coach in the National Hockey League one day, maybe for the Boston Bruins too.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. And look, you make a great point there. The problem is I don't think that the guys making the decisions, yes, you're not a joke, my friend. You're not a joke. I think that the guys making the decisions for the Boston Bruins right now, and Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, are a little more rigid, so to speak, than maybe Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, and not more in tune with creativity, let's say, than those guys are. And that's why I really think, for Montreal Canadiens fans that we're speaking to right now, I think you guys are in great hands. I think good times are coming a lot sooner than you expect, because they're open to ideas like that. And right now, I think that's what the Bruins need to do. But from what I'm told, they're looking at guys like that. And then, of course, the obvious choice that everyone's always discussed is Jay Leach, who was the head coach in Providence as of 2 years ago, but then went to Seattle as an assistant. Him and Don Sweeney are very tight, so that would make a lot of sense as well.
I think Jim Montgomery would be a great candidate as well. He did a real good job. He did a great job with the Dallas Stars. We all know what happened. He had to walk away due to personal reasons.
Yes.
He was able to rehabilitate himself. The St. Louis Blues gave him an opportunity as assistant coach, did real good work there. And he's on a short list from a lot of teams. Like, a lot of teams would like to acquire the services of Jim Montgomery. Okay, a couple of more. And one of which is, does David Pastrnak want out of Boston?
I would say as of now, no. I think that,
So where's this talk coming from? What is this? What does this stem from?
Well, let me put it this way. Okay, Tony, and I'm going to say this, and I know it seemed crazy from the outside, and it seemed like a silly rumor, but look, I don't like to give credit to my competition, The Athletic here in Boston, but Fluto Shinzawa is one of the most respected writers in this Boston hockey writers community. And he's been on the job. He's worked for The Athletic. He's worked for the Boston Globe. And he was the one who started this story and said that, look, it's a good chance that David Pastrnak right now is looking at the situation that's going on with the Bruins, the coaching change, the potential that Patrice Bergeron won't be back, the fact that Charlie McAvoy and Brad Marchand are out until at least December, the fact that Matt Grzelcyk is out until at least November, things just changing. And obviously, the Bruins are in a state of transition, whether that goes into a transition back to trying to compete for a playoff spot, or it goes backwards and they rebuild or they retool. He has to be looking at and having some question marks. And I agree with Fluto. So I don't think it's as crazy as a lot of people have said. I think there's substance to it. And I think the fact that his agent came out immediately and denied it means that it has there's smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. That's
all right.
What I
so
think
if you were a betting man, will Pastrnak be in a Boston Bruins uniform when next season starts? Yes or no?
I can't tell you that, because I think it depends on who they hire as coach and the direction they're taking. Are they retooling, or are they going for the cup again?
And maybe it all depends on Patrice Bergeron's future. So we'll end it with this. Does Patrice Bergeron retire at age 36, I believe? Does he return to the Boston Bruins? And if so, for how many seasons? Or does he join his former agent, Kent Hughes, in Montreal?
Let's just talk with the latter there. Look, I think it would be a great scenario. I pitched it a few times earlier, even when the season was going on. I don't think at this point that's a likely scenario that he joins with Kent Hughes in Montreal. As for the Bruins, no, I think Patrice Bergeron retires. I really do. I think that Patrice knows that he's done everything he can for this organization. He has nothing left to prove in the NHL. And look, you look at his life right now, Tony. He entered the NHL at 18. He's 36 years old. He has spent half his life in the NHL, traveling, getting beat up every night, broken ribs, punctured lung, whatever he had in that 2013 Stanley Cup final. This guy has been through it all, and he's taken a beat, and he's done what he had to be the epitome of a two-way player in the NHL and a leader. I think for him, based on what I'm hearing, he's going to move on, and he's just going to retire. And I think he ends up in management at some point.
I can understand that, having started to play soccer when I was age 7, and I had to quit at age 17. 2 ingrown toenails. They were very painful, by the way. They had to pull them out. And to speed it up with the healing process, you know what my doctor told me? Because they usually say to dip them in lukewarm water with Javel to disinfect them. You know what he told me, Jimmy? You know what he told me? Don't. He said, you want your ingrown toenails to cure right away and you be back on the field? I said, yes, I do. He said, go in the shower and pee on them. I said, I beg your pardon, Jimmy. They were cured 24 hours later.
Wow.
Pretty powerful pee, eh?
Pretty amazing.
You asked me about Nepean before. There's my Nepean story for you.
And you know what I would have done, Tony? I would have drank an 86 Red right there.
All right. It's 8.6. This one here, by the way, is a strong beer with 7.9% alcohol. The next time you come to Montreal, I think you're going to be down for the draft, huh?
Sounds good, my man.
We'll put one down, you and I hope to see you at La Cache.
Sounds good.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Marinaro. The Bruins fired their coach. Is this a joke? I'm out. Tell your friends about it. This podcast is sick.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature, and La Cache. If the last time you went to La Cache was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to La Cache. The menu will surprise you.